Everyone, my name is Mel Fiorentino, director of here at NOMA Gallery, and we have Deidra Kling here. She's going to do our artist talk, and she's a featured artist for our Life of Death show. Give it up.
Hello, everybody. Here and online, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. My name is Deidra Kling, and I'm a photographer / artist. We'll go through a little bit of my origin when it comes to photography. So I grew up in New York in Long Island. I believe my first camera was one of those little square pink cameras that you turn it, film this baby. It was a toy, really. And I shot with that for a really long time. Where my interest in photography started. I would take really bad pictures of my animals and reflections, and in hindsight, I still have some of those and pulled them out, and they're blurry, and I love them. And I wasn't artistically into photography or even knew much about it until high school. I got a Polaroid camera, and that's where everything kind of began for me. So I had a Polaroid, and I would set up these little photo shoots in my bedroom, my dark and moody teenager bedroom. I had a cloak from Halloween, and I would set up these little scenes and make everybody look sad. And we do those Polaroid shots, and I loved them. And I would take pictures of old buildings, and I always had it with me. That was the thing for it with me, is that I loved it, and it was with me all of the time. I remember this one time I went to a park with my best friend when we were in high school, and a local park to me, and I went around taking pictures of all the toddlers. And I told them to be sad. I didn't want them to smile. And I was taking pictures of all these toddlers because in my mind, I was I wanted to capture their innocence. And not being happy was that for me. So I just wanted to capture them. So I had all these pictures of strange children for a while. Their parents probably thought I was the strangest being on the planet. And then fast forward. You can probably switch the slide to places over early life. Yeah, so those are the creative seeds for me, in creating, expressing yourself, exploring, those sorts of things. You don't realize that you're doing, it wasn't at that moment I had some epiphany and knew what my future was going to be. I didn't know. I was just doing things that were organic to me. Then in hindsight, I reflected upon it and go, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense also. So there was a lot of crazy early life trauma that we all go through. There's a lot of artist stories where they're wow, I have a really super crazy traumatic upbringing, not to go through the sad story, which I won't do. It leaves an imprint on you. And for me, it was sort of hyper researching the human condition, or psychological traits, or human behavior, or abnormal psychology. I was crazy obsessed with it because it allowed me to cope with the world around me. I wanted to understand what made people tick, and what they did, and why they did it. Which makes sense now. Then it was just kind of interesting. So, Polaroid was what I had. I didn't have a DSLR or anything like that at the time. I didn't really have film other than the little camera I had. So going through my life, I'm kind of dabbling in art. And not even photography in an art way. I really was and was not doing it. I was doing it unconsciously. I didn't even know that I was doing it. I was just always exploring it, but I didn't view it as an art. I didn't view myself as an artist. I didn't even consider myself an artist until I was 30-something. Someone had said it to me. I was oh, you're an artist, and I was the word sounded so foreign to me. I was just being. I didn't know. I wasn't trying to be an artist. So that was weird. In this time, I just kind of there's a certain period of time where, I lost, I kind of recognized that these were parts of me, and I liked being creative, and I was always doing that. And then I got into a really abusive relationship that just crushed it down to the floor. And I didn't do anything for 7 years. So I didn't pick up a camera or a pen or anything. I did absolutely nothing. It was gutting.
It came out in baking.
Yeah.
The creativity came out in baking.
Yeah. So I started baking because I thought that was creative, and I would make these crazy cakes and finding these outlets, little bits and seeds that I could do to express myself in a way that was allowed. Because truthfully, like some people, not everybody is encouraged to be an artist, you know? Not everybody is encouraged to follow their heart. I wasn't really, I heard a lot of like, don't do that, it's oversaturated, you'll never make a living, it's worthless, do it for fun, you know, all that stuff. And I was very impressed. Like, who I am today and who my brain was at that time, I believed it. I was like, oh, okay. And I closed the book. And I don't know why, it's like sad, but I did. For myself, it was sad, you know, like I was like, okay, well, we don't do that. We find something else to do, you know. So, hi, Mindy. So this is something like my rose, and I discovered something and quickly lost it. So that was like, something existed and I put it away. So then I keep the switch. So then, to the moon, which is the next phase. One more. Okay. I'll read this just because I said the sky could have been on fire and I would have jumped as high as I could to reach it, and nobody would ever tell me no again. Does that move? So when I left that situation and I realized who I was and I regained connection with myself, there's a little story. I don't want to go too long into it, but it all makes sense. So it was a period of time where I was like, I wanted to buy a camera. I was always obsessed with wanting to buy a camera. I'm just trying to say this about crying. I don't know why it's like, it's hard, right? Yeah. So I was, somebody had bought me a camera, my partner at the time, and it wasn't the one I wanted, but it was nice. And suddenly it had broken. So I was like, okay, and it was like recalled or something. I couldn't get that camera. So I went to like Best Buy or something, and they had DSLRs, and I was looking at them and I was like, I really wanted them, and I really wanted them. And the person next to me was saying like, don't, literally here saying, don't buy it, it's worthless, you're never gonna use it. And I was just like staring dead at it. And I was like, I'll take that one. So I bought it, and the whole next stage of my life existed from that one moment, like taking control and, you know, going forward. So that's like a brief version of my story. And I have a partner now that's incredibly supportive. If I literally say, hey, babe, I'm gonna go buy a camera and set it fire in a parking lot, he's like, yeah. And he has. I was like, I'm gonna move the couch and I'm gonna put something there. We're gonna have smoke machines and blasters. And he's like, yes. He literally encourages my every whim, and it's the most wonderful thing to have. So. All right, so the kind of artist that I am as a photographer, the art that I do. So what I consider myself to be is a stream of consciousness creator, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with that or really familiar with how that process goes. So it was coined in psychology, you know, back in 1893. I put a little bit of information here about it, but basically it's about creating in the moment. So allowing your subconscious to exist in the present moment and mix with everything that's happening, and it unfolds in front of you. So I'm creating in the moment it's happening, I'm discovering it as it's happening. So I don't really go in with a pre-planned idea. Sometimes I will, but I try not to put a lot of like restrictions on myself because it won't turn out that way anyway. So if I go in and I say, I want to create this and envision in my mind of what it should be, it's not going to be that. No matter what, I'm such a brat and a rebel, I will go 90 degrees in the other direction and create something completely different. Or if something doesn't feel right, you know. So I allow myself to flow and the creativity to just let things happen. And it's a lot of an energy flow for me. Like I create on connections and I create on the energy flowing from me to the subject and back. And like it funnels through me. It's like a really like spiritual experience for me a lot of times. Like it's a really like, it's not tangible, it's like it's happening and I'm experiencing that and you're experiencing me. People that I create with, I'll create with over and over again because I have a connection with them, a creative connection, a spot or a place. And we share energy in that spot. And oftentimes, let's say we might only create once a year, once every couple of years, we will miss it. We're like, oh, I really miss being in this space with you. It's energizing and it's wonderful to do that. So for me, I'm a stream of consciousness creator. So a lot of what happens is impulsive. And it funnels through all of that story, like things that you see. You might have heard a song or a poem. I go through obsessive bouts of like reading poetry or looking at certain kinds of art, and that will funnel somewhere. Like I will come through, you know. So I don't really know what's going to happen any more than you do. Maybe the next slide. So these are displayed here. These two pieces were created in my studio. So I oftentimes will create either outside in a space like in nature or in a pool or a water source, but this is in a studio on a paper backdrop. So in this case, I had a paper backdrop. It was, pulled it completely out, and I had poured water over my studio floor. Just poured water, so I had like a pond. And so she was in the pond here, and you can kind of tell in the photo because she's cold, and her skin is actually has kind of goosebumps on it. And it's a white sheet from my studio, so that's just one of the things that I love about creating this way is that anything around you becomes something, and you can turn something very simple into something that can create a story. And it's not that you need to go buy a $300 gown and have it be designed by somebody, and you need a big studio and a big room with all the things. This was in a converted garage that I have, and it was a paper backdrop with a white sheet. That was it. And it happened. And I love it. So, and this is Astrid Kilson. She's a wonderful model. She's a traveling model. And we work together occasionally. So that one, I'm blocking it, but maybe the next slide is the other one. No, those are textures that I put post-process, including here. I was really obsessed with Rembrandt and Renaissance paintings at the time, and the old Spanish, that halo, the religious halos that were going on. So I did that here, which I had no idea that I was going to do that until the very end. So then it turned into something completely different. The flowers are also actually Photoshop. So. I love composite photography. Brooke Shading was a huge influence in my early days of photography. It taught me through watching her how to composite photography, things in a space. So, yeah. So the blood was just a paint that we created. For me, I love shooting blood. I think it's nudity and blood is just something very organic for me. It says a lot. You're vulnerable, you're open, but just a tiny little bit just says something. It can be feminine, it just can say something depending on where you put it. She's kind of bleeding from her heart here, so it's a little bit of that. Next slide. So this was a series that I had done for the Beautiful Bizarre Art Prize, which these two photos as well, that one was the finalist in the Beautiful Bizarre Art Prize. It was a worldwide competition, and this one as well. So I wanted to put them in here for that reason. So this is my daughter. She was probably 7 at the time, and she's in a fish tank filled with water. Well, a little bit of water. She loves this photo, actually. I was very worried about displaying this photo just because of the nature of it, but it's not in that realm, so I was worried. Right, and I was a little bit worried. I was a little bit concerned because she's nude, But again, nudity is vulnerable, child, just. She also did it willingly. I was not forcing her into the fish tank.
Where was it taken?
This was taken in my bathroom. So I just have a bathroom with a garden tub, and I put up a black sheet and put the fish tank, which was 1 foot by 2 feet. She was very tiny at the time. I did test this out on a grown adult who was very tiny before I put her in it, because I would never want to endanger my daughter. But there was a grown female adult who was very tiny, and she got into the fish tank as well. I don't have that photo here today, but it is similar. But it's very constricted, right? For me, it's a lot to do with restriction, which also goes back to my stories. I have a lot of suffocation or feeling contained, lots of things like that. We surface in my work, and it just funnels through from our experiences. We're releasing it into the world like a diary. So at least that's where I create from. I'm not trying to design the path where you go, okay, I want to create this and that, and You just have to follow yourself, your voice, and what you want to create. So that was fun.
Was it her idea or yours?
No, that was my idea. It was very last minute because we were going. Actually, this wasn't for. I apologize. My linear mind, it doesn't go that way. This was for. I was doing a gallery exhibit, the Last Rites Gallery in New York City, which was Paul Booth, a tattoo artist he owned, who's no longer open. But I was doing a series for Last Rites, and I did this, which I ended up submitting to. Sorry, so I had that on. So, this is a mirrored image. It's actually a single image. I just put two on here to fill up the space. So that is also Alora, one of my daughters. So the story with this is the same context. I would say you do a lot with very little, in my opinion. So this is in my living room, and it's with cheesecloth, and that's it. It's literally it. There was a period of time I was a single mother and I had two small children and I could not go out and shoot and I didn't have money to have a studio. So I shot my kids and at night after work. So this is one of those images. And I just put a light above her like this and that was one light. And cheesecloth, which is like $1.50 at the grocery store. And I loved how this turned out. There was no editing in it. Maybe a little color grading. That's probably it.
Has a very Renaissance-y feel to
Doesn't
it.
it? I'm like obsessed with like things that give you like make you like again restriction, like a lot of like covering, like just but she's releasing from it. For me, to me, it seems like she's trying to pull away from it. So, there's a theme.
It could almost look like she's coming up out of water.
Yeah.
Because that looks almost to me like water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shrouds, right? And I would shoot her when she was little. I could only do it. I never wanted to make her feel, or any of my kids feel like they had to shoot with me, or I would be like, it would be disappointing me. So it would be like occasionally, I'm like, hey, are you up for that movie sometime soon, So I just never wanted to make them feel like pressure. Okay, we can skip. So this was what I like to call my Gregory Crutzen phase. Gregory Crutzen was a wonderful photographer who created these like elaborate scenes, and he would take one picture. So I got obsessed with setting up like elaborate symbolic scenes, and I was doing a lot of exploring into like abandoned homes. This home actually, we passed on the way here and it tore it down. That was like pretty spot. I was like, we should build a house there. I always thought that. I was like, the abandoned houses I used to explore and to shoot in, I wish I could like bought them and like lived in them or just kept them, So this for me, obviously like milk is very symbolic to me. Like it's like very like feminine, like mother's milk, to be literal, And so this, I would bring furniture and things into these abandoned properties. So I brought a TV and tables and a fish tank, another fish tank. And just bought random things into these homes and I would set up these scenes and take a photo and leave. And the next one is the same thing. So this is a little bit interesting because we created an entire corpse. So brought in like a skeleton and I created, with the help of some friends at the time, created like intestines out of like meat and like a stuffed like spaghetti into like intestine. If you're vegan or vegetarian, I'm very sorry. But I used like natural organs and created like a corpse. Brought in a bed, like a makeshift bed into a house, and then created this scene, which was a series. She was basically the idea of this that she sat next to like the death of her love dying. She wouldn't get up to save herself, so she just stayed there and rotted. Funny note about this is we had to leave the lawn in here because we couldn't pack it up. So we ended up having to discard it out back of this abandoned house. I'm certain somebody found it and it was probably terrified. There's only so much you can do. But, so then we kind of move into like more beautiful things. This is the next stage of creating, which is like motion, movement, and love, you know. The sky, like this was like treated afterwards, so I love color shifting to create a story instead of like the yellows before to like turn it purple or pink or something that creates it. This is that piano I was talking about. Random stuff that I buy for photo shoots that just end up like being around. This is Nova, she's also a fine art model. And I switch to the next one and then we'll come back. So these two photos were done in the same place on the same day. Then you can switch back. So we're in the same location. And I oftentimes, as far as my process goes, I'd like to create multiple, completely different things in the same place because I want to make the most of everybody's time. And like, instead of just chewing the bone on one idea, we might do 4 or 5 completely different things. And I will shoot in many different ways with different exposures, with different lighting, and I'll bring all of this with me so that when I come back, I have like an entire palette of colors to work with. It might turn into something I have no idea. I had no idea. This was like even several weeks later. I went back through the photos. I keep all of my raws for the all of existence. Like I can go back a decade, and I have raw photos that sometimes I will pull back in and reimagine. Because why not? You created that, and it's something there for you. And like you might see it with a different eye or feeling. You know? So this was just something in the same exact place. We created something completely different. And again, I had no idea this would happen. But I really loved it in the end. I thought it was kind of cool.
Is that the piano?
She's sitting on the piano. Because pianos are beautiful. I just
Still have the piano. Oh, you didn't burn it?
no. I still have the piano. I'll use it again down the road, I hope.
So that concept essentially ends up being the photographer's sketchbook.
Yeah.
Like being able to draw.
Yeah, I do. I keep all of them. If I can, I'd probably go through a hard drive or a hard drive and a half a year, which is,
Well, photography usually.
yeah. So like a year, like a 2 terabyte. And that's, you know, because I want to keep everything. You know, even ones I might not even like touch. It's kind of cool. There's pictures of my daughter when she was 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and she still will be, you know, going to reimagine something. And then sometimes I often find out that it's not. I'm like, leave it well enough alone, you know, some of them. But yeah, so this was this is a texture, this is an overlay. So I took like a mountain, but that there's some websites you can go to get free like stock images, and I'll use them. You know, you can license them or like thank them if you can afford it, but they're there for you if you want to use it. You can switch. So I wanted to show these because I thought they were important because, again, they were on the same day, and it's the same person. And it happens to be Astrid who's in these photos. She's like a chameleon. She's a wonderful model. So this was done in the forest. It's hard to see a little bit, but I created this neon in Photoshop. I did not shoot it with the idea that would happen that way, but you just light things interestingly, like, you know, bring in a flash and shoot some things with a flash and turn it off, and then see what happens. And then you get many different things to play with it. I do appreciate people that really go into something with a laser beam idea with what they want. I admire you for that. I can't do it. I need many different options. And so this image on the right, Astrid, was shot in the same set that this was in. After we were done with this, I just covered her in yarn. And in Photoshop, I just colored her to be more like decayed,
Cold.
Whereas like this is very, very warm.
Mm.
So I like showing this because I don't think you need to limit yourself to an idea of people. Makes you feel like you're being like non-committal, and maybe you are, but hey, I don't know. Sometimes like in the middle of the photo, I'm like, hey, I see something, and my brain, I'm like very ADD, so I'm like, I go with it. You know, it may be, you know, to my benefit or detriment sometimes, but I think it works when you know, like in this creative realm, I'm using it as a tool, you know. The next one. So this is Kaylee. This was in water. I just turned it upside down. I thought that was cool. So you can mess with perspective. It doesn't have to. You don't have to leave things as they are. Obviously, like I love turning things upside down and burning them, mirroring them. Because the right side up, it looked completely different to me. I was like, and then I flipped it. I loved it and turned it into something else. This was just kind of in a pond behind a park. So sometimes I'll go to parks and go to the way back when everybody wants to go and find a little puddle. And it's really not as majestic as it sounds. You find some little nothing of a nook somewhere, a bush that looks unmatted, like nothing. It looks trash. And you turn it into something. Which, I don't know, like something I enjoy about that. You know, creating a lot with very little. And the next one is, I think, also creative. Same place, same day. This was Smoke On. It just happened to be that the light was very beautiful and backlighting this, and I caught it in a moment where those are the moments where you can't breathe. You're like, you see it happening, like the smoke was like low traveling across the ground, and you're like, don't.
So is all that smoke natural or is any of it Photoshop?
No, nothing here is Photoshop. This is from a smoke off.
Yeah, I was about to ask, how did you get the smoke to look so cool? Like,
That was magic. That was just the moment. It was the moment. Which is why I love creating like this. I've done smoke bombs a lot, and sometimes I put them off, and you're like, that was disappointing.
She was laying in the water.
In the mud.
She was laying in the mud water on the side of
A swampy back of the state park. She was in the mud. It wasn't pleasant. She actually had to remove some of her face. It just, you have to take some risks. And they have to trust you a little bit. And you have to trust them to go along with you. Thank them profusely. And then the next one. Interestingly, this is the same park, but it's a different puddle. It's underwater. So these are twins. They're Christy and May.
They're underwater?
They're underwater. I'm underwater also. So in this particular park, there was like a spring in the back, and we just went under the water there because the spring water is very clear. You can get some really great underwater photos there. But the moving of the fabric is really cool in the water. So I was just, again, like, I wanted to group these together because they're all kind of in the same areas. You go back to the same places over and over, and we create something different in the same place. You know? It doesn't have to just all be the same.
Did you end up waterproofing the camera?
Yes.
Or
Did I go too
did you
fast?
use a full water box?
No, I can afford a full water box for my camera at the time. They're more expensive than the actual camera to get like proper housing. So what I had was a very expensive Ziploc bag. They sell them for like $120, which is a very expensive Ziploc bag. And it's called a dip tack or something like that. Brooke Shaden or somebody that I had been watching years ago recommended it. And I still have it. I did an underwater band shoot for my husband. He was in a pool for 6 to 8 hours with turning the whole pool black with ink. But you can put your camera in these and go underwater. It's leak-proof. You want to test it and be it's just scary to put a very expensive thing in a Ziploc bag. But that's what we use. And underwater photography is incredibly difficult. Like, I have much respect for people that do that on a regular basis because you're not only like shooting in an environment that all your senses are being completely displayed, you have to hold yourself going like underwater somehow. And there's just many different elements that go into it that make it really challenging, which is probably why I did it. I like things to be difficult. I think this is my last slide. So I just recently took this, actually it's of my husband. Back there in the corner. Lovely human being. So this is light painting. I've been exploring that lately. So this is just a long exposure with like LED lights, like fiber optic wands. But you can do really amazing things with this. It's really fun too, because you have no idea what's going to happen. The light is just interesting. So I've been having people come over, like, hey, you want to come over? Like, they're like, when do you want me to come over? I'm like, I don't know, wait time. They just borrow you for like half an hour. Just to play around with it. It's really fun. So there's just many different things that you can do. You know, you don't have to like lock yourself in to one particular kind of photography. We were just talking about that actually. Like, you know, my biggest share of information is to anybody who's an artist, at least for me, is like all of these things were an exercise in potential failure. And every single thing I do is very close to the edge of failure. You know, like really close, like, and over. I fail often, actually, and that's what teaches me the most. It's not about like, oh, I researched what's the best thing to do at the best time. I literally just throw myself off of the ledge, and then when I see where the exact line is, and I go literally like right there. And I learn more from screwing up than learning. This was hard to say because I tend to stop it auto, but I'll usually set it for 25 seconds. 20 seconds, 25 seconds. But when I'm done doing whatever motion I'm doing, I usually I will turn off the camera. But probably like anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds. You can go as long as you want. There's fashion photographers that do all light painting. They would color all of their entire scene in the dark, and they light paint it, which is really fun and cool. But this is a vast difference from some of the other ones, right? So like, it's kind of like moving your way around trying to like learn stuff. Mm-hmm. I consider myself to be like experimental. I don't ever want to box myself in or be labeled something or another. So,
I think your street photography is really great as well.
But I don't share that, you know.
And so is your live concert photography. Mm-hmm. It's also fantastic.
I do tour photography and live concert photography. So I'll go on tour and shoot live, which is way harder than any of this stuff. Tour photography, live performance photography, because I have no control over anything that's happening. The lighting is always the bummer, and
But those are your best pictures.
I know it's crazy because everyone will be like, "Can't I just get some warm light, some contrast in here?" But it's not about me. I just think it's about me. So I think like, hey, can we change this? That relates to the show, right? I don't know.
So like, your music photography, like where has that taken you in the world?
That's been very interesting for me because my husband is a musician and my brother here, brother-in-law, best friend, we all live together and create, and they're musicians, and I've been lucky enough to be able to like give an opportunity to like show up in that realm and then like prove myself if I can function in that environment. And it was sort of like go on tour, and I would do tour merchandising and then shoot every night and do all the tour photography or band photos. And it taught me a lot. But now, like, I was just asked to shoot live photos for a band next weekend and the weekend after, so I do a lot more of those now, which is really fun. You can do lots of different stuff there, too. But I get to tour and go to other countries and things like that, so that's a fun thing. I feel lucky for that.
See if there's.
So this is just some information. On the next page, I just wanted to thank every single person that were in the photos, which is Deidra Kling, Ashton Kielson, Kaylee Giza, Nova Moore, Gina Fo. The photo wasn't in here, actually. I think it fell off, but Sloan Adams, which was in there, made because you just being a lot of people that do trust me and create with me. I just wanted to make sure that like I recognize how important they are to me. Any questions?
What do you shoot?
Oh, yes. I recently moved to a Nikon mirrorless system, so I haven't shot with like a DSLR system for all of the time. And now I'm with a mirrorless Nikon Z9, so yeah. Which is like a spaceship. It's very interesting. So it's great. It's a good tool, but it doesn't change anything, you know. You got your
Quality.
great quality.
Detail.
Yeah, it's amazing quality, but it doesn't change anything about like the work. If you don't have something to show with it, like that won't make your pictures better. It just won't. Because on days where I'm just off, I'm like, isn't this thing supposed to make my photos look cool? Wasn't it supposed to do the work for me?
Yeah. So you have off days.
Oh, yes. There are off days. I did like an entire client shoot where I'll go through it and I'll be like, the last 30 photos were blurry. I've been doing this for 1,000 years. How could I ever have a blurry photo ever? It happens.
So since you've been doing this for 1,000 years, I don't know how old you are, I don't want to offend you, but you did photography before all this digital stuff came in,
Yeah.
it was film.
Yeah, well, I never developed my own film. I did take some classes to learn how to do that. So I do know how to do it, but I took some college classes. A buddy of mine teaches at PhD camera, and he let me slide it in. And just kind of like,
So when you use film, you depend on somebody else to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. But I never did film professionally. I was not, that was before my time.
Oh, okay.
And I know it's very popular, but I still don't do that currently, or have access to those sorts of things, so digital.
So you handhold it when you're doing the bands and
Handhold?
things? Handheld?
Oh, yeah. Everything is digital, for sure.
Or just use a tripod
No. Handheld.
and move around too?
Yeah, injuries afoot. I've fallen off many a thing. Yeah. Were there any online questions?
I can't see them if there are any, but they say that they would appear here and they're not there. I do have a question because I was wondering about these pieces.
Yeah.
The circle that's behind her head, was that? Did you add that, or was that on the?
No, I added that.
Okay, like on Photoshop or something. Yeah.
I created it.
So was it just a dark factor?
Yeah, it was gray, actually. But this is green because I textured it. I did some overlays and texturing and color grading because it was like a sky gray background.
Did you do that with the stage hands as well, on that one particular? I mean, it's incredible work, I mean, because I thought that's a painting.
I did too.
Thank you. No, the skin tones are, I believe, very true to the photo that was taken. So I only wanted an effect around it. It might have just removed like color grading things, but that was what the color in camera for the most part.
In all of them, like the one with the woman with the smoke?
Yes, that was very unedited, that one with smoke.
Her skin tones are translucent.
Mm-hmm.
So I do both, I do Photoshop, but then I also have all natural photos. It just depends on the photo. It really does. You want to serve the photo. You don't want to just turn it into something.
I really expected you were going to say, I use Photoshop for everything.
No, I don't want to, and I don't want to. Everybody should know how to do it. I think it's really wonderful to have, but honestly, if you crutch on that, then that's okay. Years ago, I remember again, Brooke Shaded. She didn't even consider herself a photographer because she takes photos and she hyper edits them to a point where they're not a photo anymore. Which is she does beautiful work, but she considered it more of an illustration or like a. And that's okay too. Just whatever you want to do.
Do you print your own work or do you?
That is a forever problem for every photographer.
It's true.
Yeah, like quality, finding the right things. I do in small format. I can print my own, or currently can't print a book. These were done on. I'm probably going to say it wrong, and I apologize if I don't know, but it's hand mueller cotton rag. So these are on cotton rag, which is interesting for them to look so shiny because it's just paper.
And you printed it?
No, these were sent out. There's Giclée. There's a Giclée printer I use, so these were through there, and they're archival. Anything that I do that's like, I want it to be higher quality, I will make sure that it's done out, because I don't know, that's just a whole other thing.
I used to run those kinds of machines.
Really, yes.
You're touching like a $40,000 or $50,000 printer all the time, and digging around it to try to make sure that it prints right.
It's really crazy. And I will leave that to people that have larger desks and big accounts than I.
And you print one copy?
Some. Yeah, some have only been printed once. This has only ever been printed in this size, and will never, to my knowledge, be printed in another size. This large, smaller format, perhaps. for sure. No, I'm, again, a little bit of a brat and rebel, and we might have talked about this a little bit when I talked to you on the phone, but like everyone says, go big, print everything huge. And I never did. I was like, I'm gonna make it tiny. So it was print everything small, just like, you know.
I got a question from, coming off the press from Becky here.
Oh.
She said, there was a moment in New York when you sold a photograph out of a prestigious gallery. Can you describe what that meant to you at that part of your journey as an artist?
Yeah, so photography is not respected.
And if it changed the way you approached your work?
Thank you, Becky.
She's asking some
Deep and
questions.
pervasive.
Just a two-parter. Photography is not really that respected, I found. I call it a spectator sport. People like to look at it. They do not buy it or own it typically. They don't. I have an entire catalog of things I've printed that I still have from my first shows, because it's wonderful to do, and it just became a thing where I was like, I'm not doing shows anymore because this is taxing on me emotionally, and people don't appreciate this like paintings, you know, like they just did not, no matter what you did. I was asked to do this show at Last Rites Gallery in New York, which to me, to back up a little bit, it was sort of like what I'd always dreamed of. I wanted to be in that gallery. It was a dark arts gallery. I respected the people that owned it. I really wanted to be a part of that. And I never thought I ever could. It's in New York. It's in like the middle of, it's downtown. It's cool. It's like I'm in Florida, you know. I remember sitting with my husband in his studio, and I was sort of like, oh, like having one of those moments where you're like, what am I doing? Nothing, just I keep trying, it's happening. And then I had an email, and it was from them reaching out to me to ask me to be part of the show. And I was like, if I could drop the mic, I would, but I don't want to break it. But I was like shocked to drop it. So I had worked in the show, and actually was the only person who sold anything on the opening night of the show. And I was blown away. I was like, wow. So I'm like a real boy.
We drove up with that.
Drove to New York. It was so cool. I felt so cool. I said the dumbest thing in the entire world. Like when I like in New York, like, you know, like socialite people that like are like, you know, they come and talk to you and, you know, she's like, what is this work that you do? And I just blurted out. I was like, well, it's kind of like emotional fine art. She goes, what the fuck is that? To this day, I wake up in the middle of the night, like, why did I say that? Instagram. Yeah. They found me online.
She's not adding in there that about 30 minutes before, she's like, I really want to show in this gallery.
I did.
She's like, it's called Last Rites, it's blah, 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 blah. We're sitting there having a coffee, and then like, and it showed up on the doorstep.
Manifest.
And I was like, I am here.
Like, literally, you can manifest. Like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
if you just say, like, I mean, I've done it over and over and over again. Like, we're all connected. What you want will happen. What you were seeking is seeking you. You just have to be crazy enough to want to fail a lot and be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's my biggest thing. Is I was like, hope you fail. Hope you suck for a long time. Because that'll get you somewhere through it. If you like keep going and you just have the passion and the drive to create and do things nobody might even care about for 10 years. Just be you and like create and like keep going.
But when you tell people, you won't have that appreciation if you haven't tried and failed a bunch of times. When you get there, it's like ungraceful winners kind of thing.
I don't think anybody ever recognizes when they're at like a top. Because it never feels like you're there.
There's always another.
Yeah. And like even when you get there, my husband is like, sure. He's like, it's never what you think it's gonna be. Because like, let's right. So I did the Last Rites show. I thought my life was going to change. I'm in the cool room. I showed up. I was like, the next day, I was like, everything would change. It changes. You just went back home and might have had a little bit more self-loathing. Because what do you do now? You know? Am I gonna ever create anything good again?
How do I top that?
Mm-hmm. And there was a period of time I didn't shoot at all, which I started painting. So now I paint also. But I feel like my photography is like a grown up. It's like a fully realized lady, and my paintings are like toddlers, which is cool because I like kind of sucking there, you know, and I'm learning the challenges.
Are you traditionally painting or digitally painting?
No, I paint oil and watercolor.
Is your subject?
Not as much watercolor lately, mostly oil.
Is your subject matter pretty much the same?
It's kind of the same. Kind of the same. I'm very interested in like human connection and eyes and like people and like, you know.
Do you ever do hybrids of photography and painting?
I have actually. There's these. Yeah, really, because it's so hard, but to marry those things, and I'm still trying to discover how to do that. I did encaustic work. I did a whole series of encaustic work with photography where I shredded all of my photography into these little pieces, and then I buried them in encaustic wax and put them back together in different formats. So that was fun. I still have some of those. So those were also shown at Last Rites, because I showed there twice, which was cool.
But excluding Jeremy, what's your favorite thing you've ever photographed? Ever. Ever.
That would be so hard to pick. Aside from
Or the kids.
or the kids. I mean, I love these of Astrid. I really, truly do. I love them. I think that I think that was the moment where I felt like I was like, I knew what I was doing. And I felt in control. I felt like I could wield my weapon. You know, like I wasn't dragging it behind me and feeling insecure. I felt like I really found, like, okay, I trust myself now. So, yeah, I don't know what my favorite photos are. I love all of them. Again, with my husband, I was like, what do I show? And he's like, you know, like, all of your just records, you know, like you put it into music format, like a song from this record, a song from this record, a song from that record, which is kind of what I did. I kind of went through time frame, you know, like different things in different stages of my creative process. Oh, no, I don't have actual records. I meant like just the photography work, it was like a series. I do the band photography, so no, I don't have those here. We have them on our wall though, which is kind of cool. Like, see stuff like that's fun. Magazine. Yeah, I just had my very first fashion cover magazine. I had done some editorials, which I love to do. Collaborate with other artists and designers and stylists and come together to create something and submitted it. And I didn't even ask for a cover, and they put it on the cover. So it was called, I think it was called Boudica, or I wish I remember. I was so blinded by just the shot of it happening. I think it's Boudica. Style and fashion. So I do lots of different things as well, which is all just like an extension of creating, you know, it's just a different environment. And you're collaborating with other people. So photography is a huge collaboration. I can't do what I do without all these other people. Unless I'm shooting with like apples or still life. So it's interesting. So like I can only do what I do if there's other people involved, you know? And that can be challenging when I really want to create and nobody wants to come over. Everybody's busy or like people cancel and that's a challenge. I did go through a very long period of time where I did self-portraits because of that same reason. It's like having somebody, you know, to shoot. But it's more fun to shoot other people.
It's the blight of the artist always. You end up being your model that you use the most.
It's like if you want to draw, but you need your friend to bring you a pencil. You can only draw if your friend comes over and brings you a pencil. Wow.
I think if they see these guys.
Those? I'm gonna get one.
I mean, you just managed to get the perfect shot you want, or did you like 200 photographs and then pick out the one?
Well, because I do different vibes throughout, there might be 50 of that, and then 50 of another look. Something else. You know, you wind up with 800. And I don't know, so as far as picking the one that I like, I scan through and stop on the one that like makes me feel something. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the expression or like her body posture. It all comes in like, okay, that's it. That's the one I go with. There's no rhyme or reason. Like, it's composed well, I suppose, and lit well. But sometimes I'll go back and look at a photo that, like, when you look at it and you're like, what you're reading, you know, White River Bridge or something, and you're like, that's trash. It's really dark, and it's unsalvageable. I don't know if that's a good idea. But I'm impulsive, so it goes there. And then you somehow like recover it and it becomes something. You're like, I didn't give you a shot. I just left you hanging. You go back years later and now it's something you love. You're like, wow, I stopped. What happened to my brain? Because what was I thinking when I was looking at you before? And I'm like, wow, I've grown. What is different now that I think this is awesome now and I really hated it then? So again, keeping the raws and going back and evaluating the work was kind of cool.
Is it the shot or sometimes the techniques too? Like,
Yeah.
come a little ways. Like,
Oh yeah. Sometimes I go back to my early work and I'm like, wow, that's cool. How am I not doing that anymore? Oh. So then you kind of revisit like something that you might have found previously that you abandoned for more grown-up tactics. You know, but then you want to go back and revisit it. So just, it's interesting. It's an ever-evolving process, really, honestly. And I'm super grateful that all of you are here and anybody who's watching has been part of this journey for me because it's been a long one. It really has. Like, people come along with you. We get nowhere alone, you know. You know, when there's people that are supporting you, and it's nice. It's helpful. Instead of saying, like, don't do it. It's horrible. Stop it. You'll never make anything of yourself. You know, and it doesn't even matter. I never wanted to make something of myself. I just wanted to be a person. But sometimes being a person and an individual is scary to other people. Like, you're changing somehow your like self-love is now a threat to other people. And so I try to encourage everybody to like find, I say this a lot in my like world, and like art is for everybody. Everybody. I'm not like special artist person that was born with a gift. It isn't. I'm just an obsessed person, you know, and anybody can do that. Anybody can learn and create, have an art form. Because people say, like, I'm not an artist. I don't believe that at all. I think everybody's an artist. I think art, your nature of being human beings is creative. They're just not accessing that point. And in that point of being a creative person, like, or just accessing it even a little bit, can make your well-being and your spirit rise. Because you learn how to connect with other people. And I think it's gatekeeping to think it's just a community of a small group of people, you know?
Well, like when you're a kid, and the first time you're told that you can't draw,
Yeah.
and they, instead of going and keep doing it, they give up. So a lot of people that have come for like training in art and stuff, it's wherever you stop believing you could draw.
Yeah.
So if you stopped at 5, then you have 5-year-old skills.
Oh,
So like that's where you're at.
it's true.
Yeah.
And grown-ups are told that too, you know? Like,
Exactly. If wherever you decided that you didn't have that you
Yeah.
couldn't do it anymore, you just gave up and threw it out.
I love seeing like older folks, like I'll see their paintings and like they started painting at like 60 and you're like, that's so cool. That's really cool that they weren't like, oh man, I've been doing this since I was 12, so I have no right. Like,
Do you think you had more difficulty in your career because perhaps your work doesn't fit into a box and you also have to do it?
yes, and maybe. First question, yes, because I had to create a box to go in and then make other people want to go in that box. Yeah. I basically had to like be like, come over here, guys. Like I had no place. My work had no place
The
anywhere.
art is supposed to be an artist, but the powers to be an art, don't like anything really.
Anything left of center is scary, for sure. Yeah, I just feel like they're like, well, I was coined I've never say this properly, a horror artist. A horror artist.
Wait,
I know.
I'm not doing that. With an H or a W? Horror. Okay. That makes more sense. I was trying to make sure it was clear.
But it was coined that, like a dark artist, like a niche, like a something, you know. It only appealed to certain people, and I was like, that's not what I'm doing. It's part of it. It's not the whole picture. You know? So I had to create a box and then like make noise so people would want to come in the box. And now we're in a box together, all of us.
I mean, like, I started following you a long time ago, and then I was like, I'm going to ask her to put her art in here. But anyways,
Like how long ago?
like probably like a year or 2 years
Okay.
ago. Like at least within that, probably 2 years. It feels like a long time, but maybe not. But I really love the fact well, I mean, I love figurative art. That's what I do. But I like the fact and how you portray the figure,
Yeah.
and I like the darkness because there has to be a balance between darkness and light, anyways. And I don't know.
I'm
Like
obsessed with
that's why it's
hands.
appealing. Like to me, like I love that. And it's very Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of depth, and it's got like a lot of lights and I don't know.
When I was a little girl, I had a ballerina poster on my wall, and I stared at it every single day, and I used to draw off ballerina feet every day. I started seeing ballerina feet.
I did that. Yeah, my point.
So ridiculous, but I was obsessed with ballerinas. Not because I wanted to be one, so love the form, and I'm sure that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And like hands, like very gentle hands, you know, like they say a lot.
Like your daughters or something, they were gentle, but they were kind of hurt.
I always like break your hands, make them soft, like just drop them where they lay, you know? And however you naturally, that's sort of like, it just adds something to the image. Because you're like gripping also, like it's something else. Like body language is a lot.
The mind-blowing thing about like your journey, if you will, your photography. I remember like that industrial park in Brooksville.
Yes.
You look at that and it was like very commercial, very like advertisement back then.
The old milk barn or something, right? It was like orange juice factory.
The pictures you took of me ended up looking like we were taking like a shoe ad.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
To see that, so you go from this very traditional, very commercial, single layer type photos to these like masterpieces, in my opinion. Like to watch that growth and that journey, it is a beautiful thing to watch.
Thank you. There was a photographer called Karen Jersey. She's like in a band. She would do like go into abandoned buildings and shoot nude models. And I used to go into abandoned buildings and explore, something I did for fun with my friends, and take photos. And then I started bringing models in. I was inspired by her to do that, which is when I started shooting models. So she kind of triggered me to go like, I can do this. This could be cool. And then I did it, and I kept doing it. But then eventually, like all the abandoned properties have been cut down and they're gone. So I had to shift. Because where am I going to go now? I didn't have a natural backdrop. I didn't have like places to go, so I had to like create my own spots. I think I've been told to do that for a long time, and I just feel like it's not fully ready for that. Because I think that there's more to be done. Because I feel like if I did that now, a year from now, I wish those were in there. I think. I could. I love the philosophy that goes along with it, which is like kind of for me to like tell people like I try to encourage people to also create and connect with each other, and they're important. So it's very good.
I'm sorry, what kind of book were you talking
An ebook.
Oh, an e-book. Okay.
I thought about that. I just like halfway created them here and there, and then I just back away. I don't know. But it's stopping me. Make the book. I don't know what I need to say. I think that's the thing. I feel like I need to say something, and I haven't yet figured out what the tone is. Alone, don't say anything.
Pictures were
No,
supposed
I think pictures say a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, sometimes it's best to just leave it up to people.
I agree.
What they make of it.
Like even titling my work, I despise it because I feel like I'm telling somebody what to feel about it.
Yeah.
So you just put your name together.
No, I titled these. I did. Because I felt like I should. But I was like, it was an experiment, and maybe people would connect to it if I did tell them what to feel, which I feel like worked in some sense, you know? Because these have a home. Somebody bought them. So I was like, well, but maybe I'm being too ambiguous. Maybe they're like, I don't know what this means. So that's up to the artist to decide that. But sometimes I write some random stuff, just like numbers and letters and just random things.
I like when people are like that.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of helps them, you know, man with an orange.
They don't need the imagery that well.
Yeah.
They need words to
Like when we go to galleries, it's always like, you know, woman and a broom. And I'm like, it really is. And they're like, oh, I wouldn't have known that.
Thank God they said that.
How lucky for us.
Well, it's true, like with music too, like connecting with lyrics
Yes.
helps me to like really, I mean, I don't know. Same thing, it's the same thing with titles. It helps people, it gives them a direction to go into, and they can make up their mind of within that realm of where they want to go.
I was like, you're giving me a job. I have to give it a name now. It's a job. Now what? I already did all of this. Call it 1 and 2.
Okay, so good, that's
Mhm.
success. But
Thank you, yeah.
anyway, are you going to be doing more of this type of thing or more from these photographs? Or are you done with this now and you're just moving on?
Yeah, this series. Yeah, I'm done with this series, I think. As far as like creating from it, I've done enough with that series. They'll be around, but they will live on in the ether forever.
So there's more to this series than these.
They were in the, actually one of them that was in there was licensed for an album cover, like a dark wave EDM something.
Yeah, there was that one. I just wondered if you had like dozens of these.
Nope, I only have these 2 that are like this. Yeah. I think they're,
We vote for more.
yeah. I have all the raws, I didn't say that. If somebody wanted something specific, I might do that, maybe. How would you recreate this? I feel like if I sat down and edited, it wouldn't, if I tried to make it this, it would not look this. You know? But I love Renaissance type things, so that's coming, I think. Yeah.
Maybe we can,
Your new soulmate.
well, I already talked to her that we're going to be doing some in the future.
Yeah. Like a live shooting session.
Like something. I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, because I have friends that are like really technically proficient in photography. Like they know the numbers and like how many feet light falls off, and that's great. But I do not work that way. I'm like a mad scientist.
You need a math degree.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I respect those people for that. But like they know some stuff about tools and gadgets and stuff that I would never even approach. But I go in there and I just sort of like yeah, crazy, a little bit crazy, a little bit of. I just want to feel something, and if I feel it, maybe you feel it too. You know, leave something in the world behind. I always joke, I was like, when I die, my family's gonna have to do something with all of these. What are they gonna do with them?
You pick up your work.
Yeah. They do.
Well, that's when you'll be famous.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for in the future.
Stop.
I die,
Even if I'm
my kids-
not, or what I am, my kids think I'm a famous photographer. So.
Oh.
They're like, my mom's on Google. The girls,
Yeah, they love it.
they Google me at school. And I'm like, NSFW. NSFW. They're like, we can't show you all of them because my mom shoots and get people. So,
Wow, that's my problem.
right.
My kids are, yeah, my daughter's like, Mommy, I want you to teach me how to paint like you. And I was like, totally, I would, like, thank God, like, finally. And she's like, but I don't want to paint boobies. And I was like, I don't expect you to paint boobies at 9. Like, never. They can be fully clothed. It's fine.
My sister painted boobies in my school notebook, and I didn't know it.
What?
My sister had painted boobs.
Oh, really?
In my science.
I love that.
She went to school, and the teacher thought she was odd.
Yeah, I love the naked form. A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it just goes back to all that classical art, Renaissance, all that stuff. That's why I feel like it's important.
It's really important, and that work to this day is a huge influence in all aspects. You know, like literature, poetry, and like the art that's affecting me now, this many years later. So there's contemporary art. It doesn't matter. There's this whole wave right now of like people like in the music industry. There was an article they're saying like, stop making new bands. they're trying to encourage people to not make music because it's so saturated. And I'm like, what? That's really shitty of you. You're at the top of your peak and you're telling other people literally, publicly, not to do it because it's crowding you. You know, and I'm like, that's the same thing with art. So people will be like, well, everyone's a photographer. Yeah, me too. I hope everyone's a photographer. It's like, how do you feel about phone photography and that it's accessible? And I was like, I love it because if that person's happier because they're taking pictures of flowers in their backyard, why do I care? Like, I don't know anything from anybody, you know? You're like, oh, everyone's a photographer. Good. That just means that somebody has the access to make themselves happier and hate themselves sometimes a little bit.
This is a little sideways, but do you feel at all that you could be replaced by AI?
Yeah. Yeah. We're all going to be actually replaced by AI. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it could.
You might already be available in the stock of
It's. I'm okay with AI. I don't have a bad relationship with the idea of it. We were talking. Taylor, what did you call it? You said it's composer. You're an art director.
You're like a composer.
You're an art director. So when people say like an AI artist, you should just say I was the art director for this. AI.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I feel like you can use it as a tool, but you can't generate things and then label it as your art.
Taylor here said you should list yourself as a composer or as an art director.
Because I think it can help you to like finalize your ideas in a way, you know, play around. Because
I use AI to make my own reference for painting.
I've done that too.
I mean, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that. I think the ultimate thing that is frightening a lot of other artists about it in general
Because
is
it's good.
Well,
It's
because
really good.
it gets it 90% of the way there. Because you still need somebody that has the technical skills to massage it and correct it and fix it into something that still would be considered art. The issue that a lot of artists are going to have going into the future for this is going to eliminate a lot of the lower tier intermediary jobs where artists get their chops in their profession doing their stuff. So then what's going to happen is all those jobs kind of go away and you either have to do it as a hobby for a while or you get lucky in somewhere else.
Or you just adapt and there's
Start
another.
getting associated into that. But you still have to have that time period to basically hone your skills. Like you need that time period and that's initially where those jobs were. So a lot of people are frightened of that looking into the future and I'm looking at it as a tool that you can use for other stuff because it's never truly going to get rid of the artist. Because it's only referencing stuff that's already been created. So if what you're making hasn't been thrown out into the ether at this point, there's nothing for the AI to pull from it at that and grab that.
I make a lot of reference to like music because I'm a very music family. But somebody took AI to create a Nirvana song. It's not a new release for Nirvana. Nobody's gonna go buy it, even though it's not very much like a Nirvana song. It was AI. You know, lyrics and everything, the whole thing was made. I guess similar that photography is not as respected as painting because of the time and the technique that goes into painting, rightfully so. It's the same thing with AI, I believe.
Well, there's a whole lot of other technical skills that go into photography, though, that as a person that you have to learn and pick up and do, and it's very much the same kind of journey as doing physical artwork or your paint. Because I blend the two together all the time, and the thing is people just don't understand how important the, like you were talking about light fall off and stuff.
Yeah.
Knowing the parabolic curve for where light falls off at in order to render an image out of your own imagination is important.
Or if you have somebody who's like, I want a Rembrandt lighting photo, a Rembrandt lighting photo, you have to know how to do that.
Yeah, you have to know what it is, and then you have to know how to replicate it.
AI already did it.
Yeah.
It's already been done.
Use AI art to use
Now,
they're just in their infancy.
Yeah.
God knows what they'll be like in 10 years.
The other
Those
important
books
thing
don't
is
end well.
is that, like, the artist can still, if you take a piece that you generated with AI and you bring it in, and an art director's like, that's awesome, we need it from the left side. Your AI is never going to generate that exact same image again, in the other direction, and that's where the technical skill of the actual artist is still going to be paramount. So, same thing with the photographer.
So what you do, you have to, even though you add this and do this in color, it's got to be a good shot.
Yeah, it has to be a good shot. You have to really, I truly believe that that is, for me, natural to me. Like, I don't feel like I learned how to do that. I feel like I just happened. Yeah, I think that was maybe something that I could say that just was very natural to me.
Innate compositional skills.
And even when I'm not looking, if I just take a shot of something, I'm like, look at that. Like, it's perfectly on the line. I just see it, and I think it was just like that for me. And, you know, I'm not good at much else. Everything, no,
You're good at baking.
I know a little bit.
And your paintings are cool.
Yeah, thank you. They're my toddler paintings. I do love them.
I mean, I don't think they're toddler paintings.
No?
No.
I'm still learning all the basics.
But they're cool. They got like a cool feel to them.
It's kind of similar the way I approach it. Is like I just go in and I don't put too much thought into it. Because if I put too much thought into it, I'm not going to do it. I'll think my way out of the room. You know?
I've been doing that lately too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh god.
If you put too much thought into it and plan it, it gets stale. That's the way.
I don't like those rules. I don't. Which I think is why, like, you know, I'm in full control. You know, I am. I'm in control of like a lot. And that's good. There's a lot out of your control when you're shooting, but for the most part, you're like, all right, I want this kind of. Let's try this. I have this idea. You know, usually starts with that. We just bought a fishbowl that could go on someone's head because I really want to use this. I haven't done anything with it ever. Long time dream of mine. And the guy, when we went to the first store, we found it finally. I was like, look at that right there. Manifested it because I was like, I have a fishbowl that's big enough to go on someone's head. And they're like, ma'am, can I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah. Why'd you put that on your head? To see if it fits.
Did you put it on your own head?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you were there. Oh, yeah.
He's like, pack it up, climb, put it in the truck. It's coming home with us. So, do we have any more? No? It's been very wonderful being here with all of you,
Yeah.
sharing this time, so I love it. Thank you.